Masamune is a fat excuse for a person, but when his crush rejects him because he looks like a dying pig, everything changes. This ground-shattering infraction caused Masamune to spend 8 years in the gym and return to school as a super Chad who was out to get revenge on his former crush. As his sister Chinatsu encourages him to stop beating his flesh and get some hose, he gets ready for the first day of high school by appearing as a self-loving degenerate in front of the mirror. Kanu, his mother, invites the two siblings to breakfast. She looks suspicious, as if she would turn on lily-loving degenerates like you. When his mother makes him a high-calorie breakfast, Masamune rejects it, channeling his inner Giga Chad. He starts talking like a fool about how attractive he is on his way to school, and all the girls start swooning over him, as if he were Michael Jackson's second coming. Another attractive fool pops the question to Adagaki, a girl known as the Cruel Princess, in front of the school. Adagaki, who lives up to her moniker, calls the man a limp-wrist trash can, starts spitting furious words, and rejects his affections for her. Masamune is terrified by Adagaki's behavior and recalls his past, when Adagaki labeled him a big piggy and declared that she would never love him. He receives preferential treatment in class because of his attractive privilege, including free meals from his friend Kojo and a pat on the back from class representative Futaba. Adagaki abruptly enters the classroom with her slave, Michino, after dozing off during class, and yells at another lad who has shown his love for her. She tells him that he is unworthy of her love and that he looks like a pudding. After witnessing it happen, Masamune plays James Bond and eavesdrops on Adagaki to learn more about her. He finds out that she prefers to eat lunch by herself. He then surreptitiously tracks Busho, Adagaki's lackey, and discovers that Adagaki is actually a slimmer Nikocado avocado who enjoys eating a lot. Now that he has this knowledge, Masamune has an advantage. He then begins to get closer to Adagaki and get chummy with her, but she constantly begs him to keep away from her and to touch the grass. Adagaki treats Yoshino like trash after school and orders her to grab her some food. The pudding boy she turned down suddenly appears and begins beating her because he is envious of Masamune. Suddenly, Masamune appears with Tobarama's Flying Thunder God and, like a superhero, protects Adagaki from Pudding Boy, who flees. Then, like a fool, Masamune stands up to her and begins to ramble on about his history. He fell in love with Adagaki when she defended him from bullying 8 years ago when Masamune was a fat turd. However, Adagaki declared that she would never love him and called him a pig's foot. By making her adore him and then discarding her like the garbage she is, he seeks retribution. Then, after considering his brilliant scheme, Masamune begins to chuckle and tweak like a real degenerate. Masamune's cover is shattered when he finds a love letter in his locker the following day, but it refers to him as Pig's Foot. In an attempt to identify the letter's sender, Masamune begins to suspect everyone, including Kojo and Futaba. Fearing that people may discover that he was once a fat, shabby, unloved human being, he begins to tinker. He begins his detective work since he does not want such to occur. He finds motivation in recalling the Navy SEAL training he underwent to get in shape. Everyone scrambles to acquire their food from the cafeteria when lunchtime abruptly begins. Yoshino in the rear of the line is one of them. She is pushed back, and when she falls and reveals her mint-colored underwear to Masamune, the plot gods strike once more. When Yoshino is unable to purchase part of the food on her list, she breaks down in tears and recites her death wish. She gives Masamune the list to purchase, and he does it with diligence and his toned abs. When Yoshino realizes that Masamune, her savior, took all the food, her eyes begin to sparkle. Yoshino begs to accompany Masamune to Adagaki after she informs him that he is aware the food is for Adagaki. When Yoshino tries to flee, Masamune grabs her and tugs at her cheek. She is persuaded to allow Masamune to accompany her. When they get at Adagaki, she begins berating Yoshino and calling her derogatory things since she was late bringing her dinner. After Yoshino leaves, Masamune enters and observes them from the outside. Following a back and forth with Adagaki, Masamune comes to the conclusion that the letter was not sent by Adagaki. Yoshino enters abruptly, slips, and the plot gods bless her once more with her underwear sign. Adagaki informs Masamiune that Yoshino is her slave and hers alone, despite Yoshino later demonstrating her unadulterated goodness as her best friend. After declaring his desire to become Adagaki's slave, Masamiune rises to her and exits the chamber. Masamiune plans his next move to hurt Adagaki's sentiments as he makes his way home from school. He unexpectedly enters a booby trap that Yoshino has put up, which hangs him upside down. He is identified by Yoshino as Pig's Foot and is the sender of the letter. She inquires as to whether Masamiune desires retribution. After making every effort to recall his past, Masamiune eventually recalls that Yoshino worked as a maid in Adagaki's estate. He tells Yoshino that he would exact revenge on Adagaki since he feels defeated. Yoshino transforms into Judas and promises Masamiune that she would assist him in exacting his retribution in a dramatic storyline twist. The following day, Masamiune is hesitant to put her trust in Yoshino because she believes it's just another ruse and that she will humiliate him by exposing his browsing history to the public. Masamiune joins the Treehugger Committee that maintains the school's environment in an attempt to strengthen their relationship, but Adagaki still shuns him like the plague. Futaba, the class representative, approaches him while he is working on the committee and apologizes for pressuring him to join. Then she asks him to go on a date to see a movie with her alone. Masamiune nearly gives in to her charms after hearing her confession and begins to fantasize about his future children with Futaba, but he gathers himself for his purpose and doesn't respond appropriately. At this point, Masamiune discovers that girls want him to be their baby daddy and that he is genuinely popular. Being aware of his notoriety, he begins to giggle foolishly. Adagaki, however, abruptly appears behind him to confront him about something. Given his notoriety and his boastful assertions that he would love to go out with Adagaki, Masamiune believes she is beginning to feel envious. When Adagaki says thank you, Masamiune's confidence soars because she believes he has won her over. He then requests her contact details, but she makes an excuse and says she will provide it the following time, to which he consents. He later waits for her to keep her word, but she leaves him clue-filled letters and leads Masamiune on a crazy chicken and broom chase that ends with him back where he started. Then, as he glances out the window, he sees Adagaki looking like a total idiot, his advances rejected by a large sign. Yoshino appears out of nowhere and tells him that he is a total idiot and that he will exact his revenge on her. A few days later, class representative Futaba tells the entire class that extra sessions will be required if any of the pupils receive failing grades. Kojo, the fanboy, informs them that his IQ is room temperature and that his grades are really poor. The ignorant fanboy is led to the study hall by Masamiune, who then bends him over and begins studying with him. It just so happens that Yoshino, who is also a total moron, is being taught by Adagaki. Adagaki then begins disparaging Masamiune, calling him a cocky fool who enjoys bending over and being beaten by fanboys. After hearing her contempt, Masamiune gets up and dares her to a competition to see which pair can score higher on the test, him and Kojo, or Adagaki and Yoshino. He remembers that Yoshino is actually on his side. Masamiune will have to go on a date with him if she wins. However, Adagaki will have to be her father and cover all of her lunch expenses if he prevails. They both concur, and the conflict begins. Returning to her residence, Yoshino informs Adagaki that Masamiune passed his transfer exam with a perfect score and is, in fact, Albert Einstein's second coming. Adagaki is taken aback by this and begins to feel threatened. After returning home, Masamiune is pounding his meat when Yoshino calls him. Masamiune suddenly believes Yoshino will assist him with the wager, but Yoshino labels him a fool and claims she is incapable of doing so. When Masamiune and Adagaki first meet at school, they begin testing each other's skills and knowledge, and Masamiune is able to respond to every question. He understands that he must rely on his own skills to win the wager. As the studying montage begins, Masamiune continues to instruct Kojo every day while he works very hard at his academics. Masamiune's mother and sister even believe that he is crazy for choosing to study rather than work out. The exam day approaches and passes swiftly. When Masamiune goes to buy drinks for him and Kojo, he runs into Yoshino at the vending machine. Yoshino offers him some black coffee, apologizes, and encourages him. Masamiune is perplexed by Yoshino's actions, but he soon learns that his stomach is aching and that Yoshino ruined the coffee by adding laxatives. After the exam is over, Masamiune leaves the room and heads to her classroom to find Otagaki. It turns out that Otagaki had a fever and missed school, and that his stomach problem was brought on by his mother's cooking. After a few days, it becomes apparent that Masamiune needs additional instruction. Otagaki, who sits directly next to her, surprises him by being present as well. At last, he is able to fulfill his desire and get a date with a cruel princess. Otagaki attracts everyone's attention as she arrives to the date dressed as Sailor Moon. She is approached by an unattractive geek who requests to take a picture of her with his camera and foul-smelling armpits. She is rescued from him by Masamiune. As it happens, Yoshino was the one who arranged for her to wear the extravagant costume. By leading Otagaki to believe that a strange attire is necessary for first dates, she poisons her psyche. They head to the movie theater on their date, but it turns out that Otagaki is a young sugar mommy who reserved the entire cinema for them. They begin seeing the film in which Walter White is surrounded and pursued by zombies, but the zombies soon begin producing zombie offspring. The film is such a masterpiece that it completely overwhelms Otagaki by the end. Her hunger then rumbles, and they head to a restaurant to dine, where Otagaki begins to gulp down the food as if it were the last day. They're going to discuss a serious topic when a small, dim-witted child interrupts and begins to infringe on her Sailor Moon costume. When Masamiune finally reveals to her that the costume is not required, Otagaki becomes self-aware and changes into new clothing right away. She bursts into tears in the changing room, and Masamiune rushes in to check on her. When she discovers that she is only partially nude, she punches him in the face. She is asleep, waiting for him to wake up, and he wakes up on her lap. Her heart begins to gently melt for him after that. When Masamiune returns to Yoshino after the date, she informs him that it would be beneficial for him if his revenge quest humbled Otagaki. Masamiune uses romance manga as a source of knowledge back home in an attempt to win Otagaki over. He masters the slow-motion kissing sequences. He carries out his master plan in class, which is to continue staring at Otagaki like a complete moron with no chromosomes and to say a corny one-liner that he picked up from the romance manga. He appears out of nowhere when it starts to rain, gives her an umbrella, and says a stupid one-liner before running off into the distance like a fool who thinks he's cool and laughing like a genius. Afterwards, Yoshino informs him that Otagaki finds his behavior to be utterly repulsive and that his infatuation with citing romantic manga is as stupid as a rock. She gives him a strategy, which is to distance himself from Otagaki and make things interesting by acting as frigid as possible and having ice in his veins. Despite his concerns, he goes ahead and carries out this new plan. When Otagaki tries to give his umbrella back, he ignores her, channeling his inner Sigma. He continues to ignore her when she tries to return his umbrella, even in class. He is certain that Otagaki will attack his willy after school, but it backfires, and she starts to show no interest in him. Yoshino advises him to stick to the strategy and not give up like a loser. As the days go on, Otagaki grows more and more distant from his willy. Otagaki unexpectedly ambushes him with murder written in her eyes after Masamiune has a mental breakdown because she doesn't feel sexy enough. He tries to flee, but she stops him in his tracks by hurling his umbrella at his chubby head. She catches him and begins humping him to prevent him from running, even though he nearly succeeds. She asks why he is ignoring her and breaks down in tears. Masamiune observes with wonder at the success of Yoshino's scheme. When she becomes serious and asks him why he likes her, Masamiune folds and flees like a coward with shrinking testicles, but he immediately recovers his composure and begins to lift her up. Since he didn't anticipate this level of development in their relationship, he flees like a complete degenerate and starts to doubt his own sanity. He tries to offer her a letter the following day that expresses his sentiments, but she throws it away, declares her hatred for him, and flees. When asked about his feelings, Yoshino advises Masamiune to be a man who doesn't back down, even though he doesn't know what he did wrong. Masamiune makes his own plans despite Yoshino's advice to back off and let her handle things. As she skips class, Adagaki recalls the day she spotted Yoshino and Masamiune conversing in the garden, presuming he was speaking to other females next to her. Yoshino abruptly appears and confesses to having been seeing Masamiune behind her back. Yoshino calms Adagaki down before she loses her mind by telling her that Masamiune only has eyes for her, which surprises her. Adagaki then responds like every tsundere in the world by denying it even if it is true when Yoshino asks whether she too likes him. Adagaki searches for Yoshino when she vanishes like Batman. She begins to reflect on her past and her relationship with Masamiune while on her search. A automobile nearly steals Truckquin's job and transports her to another planet, but Masamiune gets there in time to save her. He informs her that he can't live without her after saving her. His words cause her to flush, and as they are about to plant a kiss, a girl interrupts them. The girl begins to pray and give thanks to God for giving her sight after being startled by Masamiune's attractive Squidward face. She initiates a romantic triangle when she unexpectedly gives Masamiune a hug. When she realizes what she did, she pulls back from pushing her melons toward him in an attempt to establish her control. As she holds him in her gentle hands and tells him that she recognizes him, he begins to activate his reproductive system. She maintains that she is with the wrong person despite his warnings. Shiru, her butler, unexpectedly appears and requests that she go. Adagaki advises him to leave her alone, touch the grass, and create babies with trees after witnessing the entire incident with disdain. He goes to the cafeteria to make amends with her, starts buying food, and gives it to her. However, he is suddenly shot by rubber bullets from someone in the bushes, who turns out to be Yoshino. He tells her about his predicament with the enigmatic woman who has suddenly expressed interest in his willy after succumbing to peer pressure. Although displeased with his behavior, Yoshino gives him an opportunity to speak with Adagaki. He envisions a situation in which she wears a Darth Vader helmet at random to fend him off as he tries to lift her up. As he approaches the door to open it, he pauses, drops the food, and lets her consume it. Since the enigmatic girl is exactly his type, he is unable to sleep the following night and begins daydreaming about her. With the harem and narrative gods on his side, the teacher brings in a new transfer student as class begins, the enigmatic girl from the previous day. She brightens up the class with her beauty as she introduces herself as Nico. Since she is already very well liked by the class, Masamiune is unable to spend any time with her during the break. She is constantly preoccupied with her own Yuri harem, so he keeps trying to talk to her but never succeeds. He approaches Nico at her table after mustering up enough courage and chakra. The group of females pauses abruptly and gives him a strange look. It turns out that Nico moved to this school specifically for Masamiune. She remembers how, 3 years ago at Christmas, Nico was out in the cold collecting donations in public when Masamiune wrapped his warm coat around her to keep her warm and placed cash in her donation box. Then he begins to elevate her and refers to her as an angel. Hearing her narrative makes the audience go crazy, but NC finds it confusing because he was not the man in the story and was still a fat slob at the time. Taking Nico's hand, he drags her aside so they can speak in private outside. Unable to catch up, she collapses to the ground and begins coughing up blood. She drops a packet of ketchup from her palm as he begins to panic and assist her. She informs him that her sentiments remain the same even after it comes out that she lied about the blood in the Christmas story. Masamiune blushes when she looks at him, but he quickly gets over it and informs her that he prefers someone else. He takes her to visit Adagaki after Nico begins to cry and asks him who that person is. Nico grins at her rival, seeing her as a mere fry with flat melons and the largest balls between her legs. She challenges Adagaki and declares war on her because of Masamiune. When Masamiune tries to stop them, the plot gods bless us once again and send a wind that lifts Nico's skirt, demonstrating her complete commando status by failing to wear anything underneath. Adagaki and Masamiune both notice it, and it irritates Adagaki so much that she leaves in frustration. She punches her way free as Masamiune tries to grab her, inadvertently punching a teacher in the face and getting reprimanded for it. They are instructed by the teacher to clean the school pool. She intends to squirt all over him in retaliation once Masamiune begins to clown around and spray her with water. She slides into the pool while carrying a too heavy bucket, becoming completely soaked. Masamiune leaps into the water to save her as she struggles to swim. Otagaki begins attacking him instead of expressing thanks, telling him that his sentiments are phony. However, he has had enough and lashes out at her, telling her that he genuinely likes her, which surprises her. She asks him to kiss her to prove it. Yoshino is left behind to wait for Otagaki, her master, in the meantime. She responds that she doesn't know where Masamiune is when Nico abruptly appears and begins questioning her. Still shocked by her request for a kiss, Masamiune reflects on her tender lips back at the pool. In his ideal world, he would finally exact his retribution by refusing to kiss her on a beautiful beach rather than in a random pool on a random Tuesday afternoon. When Otagaki grows weary of waiting and ends the kiss, Masamiune swiftly draws her close enough to kiss him. She pulls away and delivers him an uppercut, but he still goes for the kiss because he sees her as a piece of meat. They would dispute, but Futaba and her swimming club pals interrupt. He is left in the pool with blue balls after Otagaki informs him that he is nothing more than a dog during mating season and leaves him to go. Masamiune's attempt at kissing her later haunts him. Nico then arrives and takes a seat beside him. After what had transpired, Masamiune is in a horrible position. Nico recognizes this and pours him a hot, salty cup of tea. She then launches into a tirade about the advantages of salt in fighting dehydration and other medical bullshit. After sipping his tea, he asks her what she appreciates about him while clenching his cheeks. She tells him that she likes his wonderful modesty and that she will never give him up, but he feels assured, like a complete idiot, thinking that she will find it difficult to answer the question. Masamiune accepts her job, responds, and has a completely new perspective on her. After telling him to have more confidence, she walks away. Yoshino seizes the opportunity to follow and spy on Nico when she chooses to walk home. Shido, Nico's bodyguard, catches her in the act as she follows her from behind. Nico defends Yoshino from her bodyguard after she attempts to act foolish. Yoshino also tries to trick Nico by putting on a pure girl act, but Nico advises her to stop being so naive. Before she can respond to Yoshino's question about why she is so enamored with Masamiune, Masamiune's mother, who is 3 feet tall, enters and uses her cuteness to coerce them into entering. When Masamiune gets home and sees them in the kitchen, he takes Yoshino to his room and explains everything. After explaining what transpired, Yoshino shows him his room, which is empty except for half-empty Vaseline bottles and weights. He then pushes Nico out of his bedroom when she wants to join in on the fun. After that, Masamiune's sister Chinatsu begins to spy on him, informing them that he was once a fat pig, but Masamiune swiftly interrupts and begins the meal. Chinatsu asks Masamiune and Nico to play with fireworks after pointing out during the dinner that they would make lovely babies together. The girls then begin to dress in yukata and dazzle us with their beauty while they perform with fireworks. Masamiune's heart skips a beat when Nico enchants him with her beauty and grins whenever she can. Thank you for watching to this point. This is not the end. For part 2, don't forget to like and subscribe. We got other interesting anime recaps for you. Choose the left or the right video.